Ladies and gentlemen, I am much pleased for possibility to talk to you about one of the Brian's splendid off jobs, as he used to say, which was his verse. Due Russian saying, any gifted person is gifted all along the line, and Brian was. We first met with him in 2001 when one of the Leontiev seminar schools took place in St. Petersburg. He visited our lab, we discussed some professional problems and no more. But some months later I got by accident one of his poems entitled Love, and I translated it and sent my translation to the author. It was a good idea because Brian answered me immediately, and now we discuss poetry at large, his poems particularly, and my translation sometimes. It was the very beginning of our interest in teamwork, which lasted long enough and produced 4 books of works as a result. Brian told me that he wrote poems from his boyhood days. Some of his poems were lyrics, some were sort of light verse, there were sketches, epigrams, parodies among them as well. Nevertheless, the longest and most important ones were poems used Pushkin's topics in prose or verse. The verse was strange in form and queer in story, for Russian ears especially. However, they were interesting. We both were carried away with new prospects. All the more Brian had some complications with publishing his work at home and had no translators but poor me. We arranged to prepare authorized translations into Russian and print the bilingual versions of his works at our university publisher. They do it good and fast. 4 books were published. The first one and the fourth one were contained collected poems, a sort of miscellany of old and new ones, and they were prepared and they were thin enough. They were entitled My Brass Robins, 2004, and My Sail Hostings, 2011, respectively. The second, Stranger Secret, 2005, was a very free translation, a very free version of Pushkin's atheistic satire, Gavriliada. Brian used the famous Onegin's verse in it. No one Russian of sound mind dares to write his poems in this form, but to translate, why no? Pushkin's story became a burlesque poem with original and unusual author's philosophy, which was the next door to my own. We both were quite pleased after it. The third, entitled Egyptian Twilights, 2008, was the most interesting in its story and form. Brian assumed at the basis Egyptian Nights by Pushkin. Pushkin's short prose story became Spalding's long rhymed poem with new heroes, new plot and some new ideas. By the way, this book was the thickest of all others. Onegin's verse was used again, but some chapters were written with free verse and some other matters. Just as well as previous book, this one was unusual and strange ideas and so on. It was interesting, of course. There were some poems which Brian printed at home before, and all of them were free versions of Pushkin works. There were The Golden Cockerel, Rusalka, the Russian for mermaid, Tsar Nikita, and Mozart and Salieri. It needed to translate them again into Russian, of course. They are rarities in the United Kingdom, but the amateurs can find them and enjoy them. For long years, Brian had a dream to visit Pushkinsky Gory, one of the Pushkin family estate near Pskov city. He realized his dream in June 2010, when our mutual friend and my colleague Professor Vladimir Mityakov kindly took with his car Brian, Colleen and me there, and we spent some pleasant days among nice Russian landscapes. Brian has donated his Pushkin books to Pushkin Reserve Library. He was interested much with more museums which are spread at all, even the smallest hamlets of the large reserve. I'll show you some photographs of that June. After one of the long works, we were sitting at the ancient summer house near the lake. Moorland stretches around and myriads of mosquitoes were studious in their bloody works. Brian, being beaten all over, was angry and sad. you must be proud, said I, because the ancestors of these mosquitoes beat Pushkin himself. And Brian just cheered himself up and became really proud. In the last years, Brian used to compose a sonnet to every his birthday and to send me a copy. Colleen has found the last one among his papers after Brian's death and sent it me too. My thanks to her. Brian often told me that Russian sounds excellent for English ear. Maybe so. Listen please this sonnet in my translation. Без сожалений в мир иной уйду, лишь сам замру у жизни на краю. Что, нет бумаг, зря встали в череду наследники, всех сплошь не признаю. Но есть, покуда жив, надеюсь, все ж, немногие, что с дуру мне верны. Мол, умер он, куда теперь уйдешь? Ручей надежды жалкой узины. Пусть век окошко затворит вот-вот, хватает дел, и я к свершениям рьян. Мнит оптимист, по-тихому уйдет, но вот в опровержение мой план. Таким трудам вослед смогу сказать, смерть истинно дарует благодать. I can't add anything to these wise and light words. Thank you for your attention and patience. And take a look at some photographs where Brian and some other persons are shown at his well-beloved Russia. Goodbye.